Hey everyone, Six Paths Theorist here, back again with another interesting story. What if Naruto had Sasuke's Sharingan? In this alternate tale, Sasuke realizes he won't survive his injuries after the battle on the bridge in the Land of Waves. In his final moments, he makes a choice that changes everything. He gives his eyes, the Sharingan, to Naruto. This is the story of Combined Legacies. But before we get into it, please, for my sake, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. Now let's begin.
Chapter 1: Fall of a Brother. The world inside Haku's demonic ice mirrors had contracted into a microcosm of crystalline terror. The air was so cold it burned the lungs with each frantic breath, frosting the edges of Naruto's jumpsuit and glazing the cement of the unfinished bridge beneath their feet. The only sounds were the haunting echo of Haku's voice, the sharp hiss of Senbon cutting through frozen air, and the thunderous, distant percussion of Kakashi and Zabuza's duel, a world away. "He is fast, Naruto," Sasuke gritted out, his newly awakened Two-Tomo Sharingan spinning wildly, a crimson pinwheel trying to track dozens of moving targets at once. Sweat beaded on his temple, freezing instantly. His movements, they're not just speed, he's phasing between the mirrors. "Then we break the mirrors," Naruto shouted, a kunai held in a white-knuckled grip. His own instincts, a primal, orange-hued chakra simmering just beneath his skin, screamed at him to move, to attack. "No time," Sasuke snapped, his eyes flickering. "Incoming." Another hail of Senbon erupted from multiple mirrors at once. This was no random volley, it was a calculated pincer maneuver. Sasuke's Sharingan, pushed to its nascent limit, saw the pattern a fragment of a second before it was complete. A cluster of needles, glinting with deadly intent, was aimed not at him, but at a blind spot in Naruto's frantic defense, the space between his shoulder and neck, a strike meant to sever vital nerves. There was no thought, only action. A guttural cry tore from Sasuke's throat, not of pain, but of effort, as he threw his entire body into Naruto's side. The shove was brutal, sending the blonde stumbling away just as the Senbon thwipped into the space he'd occupied. And into Sasuke. The impact was sickeningly soft. Two of the slender needles found their mark, burying themselves deep in the side of Sasuke's neck, perilously close to his carotid artery and spine. He didn't scream. A choked gasp escaped him, his eyes widening in shock before the Sharingan flickered and died, leaving only the dark, depthless onyx of the Uchiha. His legs buckled, and he collapsed to the cold cement with a heavy, final sound. Sasuke, Naruto's roar was raw, tearing from a place of pure, unadulterated terror. He scrambled to his friend's side, his hands hovering, unsure where to touch. The Senbon looked like vile metallic feathers sprouting from his neck. Sasuke's face was pale, his breathing shallow and wet. Haku's form solidified in a mirror before them, the ANBU mask betraying no emotion. "He moved on instinct to protect you." The mellifluous voice held a note of genuine, sorrowful surprise. "A beautiful yet tragic loyalty. He will not feel the next one, I promise." Inside Naruto, something shattered. The careful, fragile dam holding back the bilious, red-hued chakra of the Ninetales cracked. A surge of corrosive, alien energy flooded his system, hotter than any fireball jutsu. His vision tinged red at the edges. But before the fox could fully take the wheel, Sasuke's hand shot up, trembling violently, and clamped around Naruto's wrist. The grip was shockingly strong. "En Naruto," Sasuke's voice was a wet whisper, bubbles of blood forming at the corner of his lips. His dark eyes, glazed with pain, found Naruto's panicked blue ones. In them, Naruto saw no fear of death, only a terrifying, focused resolve. With his other hand, Sasuke moved. It wasn't a gesture of pain or weakness. It was deliberate, precise, a final jutsu. His fingers wrapped around the two Senbon protruding from his neck. Naruto watched, horrified and mesmerized, as Sasuke, without a flinch, pulled them free with a sickening, wet slide. Blood, dark and arterial, welled up and began to stream down his neck, soaking into the high collar of his shirt. "Sasuke, no, stop moving, we need to." "Shut up, Dobi," Sasuke wheezed, a ghost of his old smirk twisting his bloodied lips. His eyes locked onto Naruto, with an intensity that pinned him in place. "Listen, my life is over, I can feel it. The spine, the artery, it's done." "Don't say that, we'll get Kakashi-sensei, we'll." "There's no time," the force of the whisper was a command. Sasuke's hand, slick with his own blood, came up. In it, the two blood-tipped senbon gleamed. My dream dies with me, but yours doesn't have to. Naruto's mind, fogged with panic and the fox's rage, couldn't parse the words. What are you? Sasuke's last reserve of strength was Uchiha's strength, born of a will forged in the fires of genocide. In one fluid, brutal motion, he brought his hands up, not to attack an enemy, but to bestow a legacy. He plunged the two senbon into Naruto's eyes. There was a moment of blinding, white-hot agony, a sensation of liquid heat and popping pressure, and then nothing. The world Sasuke's bloody, determined face, the glittering ice mirrors, the grey sky, vanished into an absolute impenetrable blackness. Naruto screamed, a sound of pure physical and psychological torment, clawing at his face. His hands came away wet, but not just with his tears. I'm sorry for this. Sasuke's voice was closer now, a dying breath against his ear. He was slumped against Naruto, his weight growing heavier. Take them after this mission. Have the medic Nin transplant my eyes. The Sharingan is yours now. Sasuke, you bastard. What did you do? Naruto wailed, blind and helpless, clutching his friend's collapsing form. My goal, Itachi Uchiha. The name was a curse and a prayer on Sasuke's lips. Kill him, avenge our clan, then I'll rest easy in the Pure Land, knowing you completed my goal. A violent, racking cough seized him, bringing up more blood. He was fadding, the words becoming fainter, forced out with his last vestiges of life, and become Hokage brother. The final word hung in the frozen air, a benediction and a burden. Brother. It was an acknowledgement of their rivalry, their fights, their unshakable bond forged in the crucible of Team 7. It was a title Sasuke had never spoken aloud. Then the grip on Naruto's wrist went slack. The weight against him became a dead weight. The shallow, ragged breathing stopped. Silent. In that void of sight and sound, something within Naruto Uzumaki broke open. Not just grief, though that was a tsunami threatening to drown him, but the last barrier to the entity sealed within his navel. The red chakra didn't just leak, it erupted. A column of furious, crimson energy exploded from his small form, shattering the ice mirrors around them into a million glittering shards. The force of it blasted Haku, who had been watching in stunned, horrified silence, clean out of their formation. Naruto rose, a bestial, guttural growl reverberated from his chest, no longer entirely human. A single, fox-like tail of dense chakra materialized behind him, lashing the air. His features sharpened, his whisker marks darkening, but his eyes, the ruined sockets, streamed with a mixture of blood and corrosive red chakra. He was blind, but the Kyuubi did not need eyes to hunt. It used scent, the metallic tang of blood, Sasuke's, his own, the unique chakra signature of the ice user, Haku, now trembling with a new kind of fear. It used sound, the frantic heartbeat of its prey, the crunch of ice underfoot. It used pure homicidal instinct. You hurt my brother. The voice was a layered nightmare, Naruto's own twisted and deepened by the fox's malice. Haku, a master of silent assassination, was completely unprepared for this. This wasn't a shinobi fight, it was a predator's slaughter. Naruto moved in a blur of red, a feral scream tearing from his throat. He didn't throw kunai, he didn't form hand signs. He clawed, he battered, he ripped with chakra-enhanced strength that pulverized ice and flesh alike. Haku's speed was meaningless against this omnidirectional, sensory rage. Mirrors were smashed before Haku could enter them. Senbon shattered against the red chakra cloak. It was a brutal, one-sided dismantling that ended with Naruto's chakra-clawed hand thrust through Haku's chest, the Hunternin's mask cracking to reveal eyes wide with pain, regret, and a strange, sorrowful acceptance. As Haku's life faded, whispering apologies to Zabuza, the red chakra around Naruto receded like a tide, leaving him kneeling on the bloody, ice-strewn cement, blind, empty, and hollow. The weight of Sasuke's body against him was the only anchor in a world of nothingness. Across the bridge, the battle had reached its climax. Kakashi Hatake, his own Sharingan whirling, had seen the crimson explosion of chakra, had felt its vile, overwhelming hatred. A cold dread, colder than any of Haku's ice, had seized his heart. Naruto Sasuke, but he could not afford to look. Not with Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the hidden mist, bearing down on him with the full fury of a man who had just watched his own weapon, his sole companion, fall. It was the grief in Zabuza's roar, a mirror to the one he knew was tearing at Naruto, that gave Kakashi the final, grim opening. As Zabuza charged, no longer a calculating mercenary but a grieving beast, Kakashi performed the Chidori. The sound of 1,000 birds screeching filled the air, a dissonant elegy. He met Zabuza's final, desperate charge head-on, the lightning cutter piercing the Mist Nin's heart. Zabuza fell, his last breaths used not to curse his killer, but to ask Kakashi to take him to Haku's side. As the mist began to thin, stained pink with the setting sun and the blood of the fallen, Kakashi turned and ran, his heart hammering against his ribs. The scene he came upon would be seared into his memory forever. In a circle of destroyed ice and scarred cement, Naruto Uzumaki knelt. He was cradling Sasuke Uchiha's limp form in his arms, rocking slightly. Blood, so much blood, covered them both, a macabre paint on orange and blue. Naruto's face was tilted upward, sightless eyes wide open, twin trails of dried blood and tears carving paths through the grime on his cheeks. He made no sound, but the sheer, silent devastation radiating from his small frame was louder than any scream. Naruto, Kakashi's voice was hoarse. He approached slowly, his own body aching with exhaustion and a grief he hadn't allowed himself to feel since the death of his own team. "He's gone, Kakashi-sensei," Naruto whispered, his voice flat, dead. "Sasuke's gone, he gave me his eyes. He told me to kill Itachi, he called me brother." Each word was a hammer blow. Kakashi's single eye widened, taking in the senbon on the ground, the specific wounds. The horrific, profound truth of it crashed over him. A bloodline limit, willingly bestowed in a final act of twisted love and desperate legacy. The Uchiha clan's last loyal son was dead, and he had passed their cursed power to the village's pariah, its Jinchuriki. The sun dipped below the horizon of the land of waves, casting long, deep shadows. The battle was won. The bridge, a symbol of hope, stood, but on its cold surface, Team 7 lay shattered. Kakashi stood over the broken form of his student, the boy who held a demon and now carried the eyes of a ghost, and knew nothing would ever be the same again. The legacy of the Uchiha and the destiny of Naruto Uzumaki had just been fused in the most tragic, bloody, and irrevocable way imaginable. A new life, born from the fall of a brother, began in that moment of utter darkness. The world came back to Kakashi in a horrifying, overlapping echo. The metallic scent of blood, so thick in the air of the bridge, transposed itself over the phantom smell of rain-slicked stone from a night 17 years past. The weight of Sasuke's still form in his mind's eye bled into the memory of another Uchiha, Obito, crushed and broken beneath a boulder, offering a final gift with his last breath. "I'm giving you my Sharingan." For a vertiginous second, Kakashi wasn't on the Great Naruto Bridge. He was in the hell of Kanabi Bridge, the cries of his teammates, Rin's horrified shrieks, Obito's fading voice superimposed over the present. The cycle of loss of gifted eyes and shattered teams was a nightmare repeating itself with cruel precision. His own Sharingan, the one Obito had given him, throbbed dully in its socket, a permanent, aching reminder. Not again, please, not again. His paralysis was shattered by a sound that cut sharper than any senbon. Asayasu Kaikiwan. Sakura Haruno, who had been fighting her own battle against terror and irrelevance on the sidelines, finally broke from her cover. Her green eyes, wide with denial, took in the scene, the shattered ice, the blood, the two boys at the center of it all. She saw Naruto, frozen and bloodied, holding Sasuke. She saw the unnatural angle of Sasuke's neck, the pallor of his skin, the absolute stillness of the proud Uchiha posture. A raw, wounded animal sound ripped from her throat. She stumbled forward, her legs barely holding her, and collapsed beside them. Her hands, trembling violently, hovered over Sasuke's chest, his face afraid to touch, yet desperate for a sign of life. "No, no, 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 no," she chanted, the word a desperate prayer against reality. Her tears fell freely, splashing onto Sasuke's blood-stained shirt. She reached out, her fingers brushing a lock of his inky hair from his forehead, a gesture of tender familiarity that felt obscene in the face of death. "Sasuke-kun, wake up. Please, you have to wake up. You can't do this." Her grief was vocal, physical, a storm of anguish. She shook his shoulder gently, then more frantically. "We're a team, we just started. You can't leave. You promised you'd get stronger, you promised you." Her words dissolved into incoherent sobs, her body curling in on itself as she clutched at his arm, as if she could physically tether his spirit to the world. Her shrieks and cries painted the air with a color of loss that was entirely different from Naruto's silent cataclysm. They were the audible heartbreak of a world that had just lost its son, its focal point. And Naruto, just inches away, heard it all from within his absolute darkness. Each of Sakura's sobs was a needle driving deeper into the hollow space Sasuke had left behind. He could feel the vibration of her grief through the cold cement, but he was frozen, encased in a shell of shock and a new terrifying sensory deprivation. The only person whose voice had ever carried a thread of acknowledgement, not of the demon but of Naruto, was gone. Their rivalry, their grudging respect, their unspoken bond forged in 1,000 shared glances and synchronized moves during training, it had been the closest thing to brotherhood he'd ever known. A bond fought for, not given. And he hadn't even seen it end. That was the cruelest cut. Sasuke's final act, the painful, bloody gift, the weight of his dying words, the ghost of a smirk, had been given in total darkness. Naruto had felt it, heard it, but he had not seen it. He would never have the visual memory of his friend's last expression, the look in his eyes as he called him brother. That moment, the most profound of his young life, existed only as sound, touch and smell, blood, cold metal, and the fading warmth of Sasuke's breath. It was a memory half-formed, forever incomplete, a painting with the central figure torn out. He was blind in more ways than one. The world was black, and the one person who had truly seen him, not the container, not the clown, but the determined, loyal boy underneath, was gone. The warmth against his side was cooling rapidly, a terrible metric of time passing, of life departing. Kakashi, shaking off the ghosts of the past, forced himself to move. He was a jonin, a leader. His own grief was a luxury he could not afford. He knelt first beside Sakura, his hand coming to rest gently on her shaking shoulder. "Sakura," he said, his voice low and strained but deliberately calm. "Sakura, look at me." She turned her tear-streaked, shattered face to him. "Sensei, he's. "I know," Kakashi said, the words heavy. "I need you to be strong now. For the team, I need to check on Naruto." The mention of Naruto seemed to barely register through her wall of grief for Sasuke. She nodded numbly, her sobs subsiding into silent, heaving tremors, her gaze fixing back on Sasuke's face, as if by staring hard enough she could reverse what had happened. Kakashi shifted his position, coming to kneel in front of Naruto. The boy hadn't moved a muscle. His face, turned toward Kakashi's voice, was a mask of dried blood and blank shock. The eyelids were closed now, but the damage was evident. "Naruto," Kakashi said softly, his professional eye already assessing the horrific injury. The Senbon strikes were precise, deliberate, not an attack but a procedure. Sasuke's last, brutal act of will. "Naruto, can you hear me?" A slow, almost imperceptible nod. "The mission is over. Zabuza and Haku are dead. The bridge is secure." He delivered the facts, an anchor in the storm. "I need you to let go of Sasuke now. I need to prepare him for the journey home." The word home seemed to trigger something. A fresh tear, clear this time, traced a path through the grime on Naruto's cheek. "He gave me his eyes," Naruto repeated, his voice a hollow monotone. "He said, take them. Kill Itachi, become Hokage." A shuddering breath. "He called me brother." "I know," Kakashi said, his own heart constricting. The legacy, the burden, was immense, and it was now irrevocably Naruto's to carry. "We will honor his will, Naruto, but right now I need you to trust me. I need to take care of both of you." With infinite gentleness, Kakashi pried Naruto's stiff, blood-caked fingers from Sasuke's jacket. He then carefully gathered Sasuke's body into his arms, arranging the limbs with a somber respect. The Uchiha boy felt tragically small, the weight of his ambition and hatred gone, leaving only the fragile shell of a 13-year-old. Sakura let out a fresh whimper as Kakashi lifted him. Naruto, now empty-armed, listlessly brought his hands up to his face again, his fingers probing the sealed, ruined lids. The physical pain was a distant echo compared to the cavernous void inside him. He was alone in the dark, with only the dying echo of a brother's last request, and the sound of a teammate weeping for the boy he could no longer see. The sunset had faded fully, plunging the land of waves into a deep, misty twilight. Kakashi Hatake stood on the silent bridge, a dead student in his arms and a broken, blinded one at his feet. The victory was ashes. The cost was written in blood and gifted eyes, a price that would forever alter the destiny of the boy who dreamed of Hokage, and the future of the village he hoped to lead. Disclaimer: this is a fan work based on Naruto by Masashi Kishimoto. All original characters and settings belong to their respective copyright holders. This transformative work is for entertainment purposes only.
And that wraps up this part of Combined Legacies. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the next part of the story. Every notification, every view, it really helps keep this series going. Until next time, this is Six Paths Theorist, signing off.